Welcome to Vacuum Cleaner Week at the 40 Watt Garage. Welcome to the channel, or welcome back. You see a previous video I did on how I repaired our Dyson Animal 2 upright vac, and I did such a good job on that one that my wife had asked me to take a look at our Filter Queen Majestic canister vacuum, and her complaint was that the beater brush head is squeaky and it doesn't seem to work right. So we're going to take a look at that today. This is the beater brush power head for a Filter Queen Majestic canister vacuum. We have had this vacuum for probably the better part of 25 years, and it was a hand-me-down from my wife's parents. They had had it for many years prior to that. Back in the day when they bought it, it was a crazy expensive vacuum cleaner, and even yet today they still make it, and it is still a very expensive vacuum cleaner. Today's equivalent is probably in the neighborhood of $1,400, but these things are built like a tank. It's the last vacuum that you would ever buy. I mean, they're all metal construction. I can't say all metal, but the important parts are all metal. They won't break, and it's something that it's an investment, but you really don't have to ever buy another vacuum cleaner again. So we're gonna tear into this, take a look. One of the things that's been bad for quite a long time is it does have a headlight built in it, and I'm assuming that it's just burnt out. And I don't know how they expect a filament bulb to survive with the vibration and the knocking around that these get, but we'll take a look at that, and we're just going to take it apart. She's complaining that the wheels squeak, so take it apart, clean it, see what we can find out. Stay tuned. One of the things that's great about these Majestic Filter Queen machines is like I said, they are built like a tank. They are built and engineered to be serviced if necessary. They're not disposable. And I mean, even stamped into the bottom plate of the machine, the screws are marked. To remove bottom plate, to remove bottom plate, to remove top. They tell you what you have to remove to get to where you need to be. So we're going to pull the bottom plate off and these roller wheels, and we'll give it a good cleaning. This lifts off. Bottom plate's off. The rollers pop out. Well, that one is obviously not stuck. The other one is not stuck. And it looks like we'll have to take the top cover off to release the belt to get the beater brush out. So we have to remove these 4 screws. Separate from the top cover. Top cover is molded plastic, but it is very thick. And then to release the beater brush, we'll have to take the belt off the end of the motor. And then this should just lift out, which it does. Turn it upright. And yes, the headlight bulb is all smoky and dark, and yeah, the filament is broken, so I'll have to get a replacement bulb. And now I think we're at the stage to where I just have to blow this out, clean it up, and we'll see what we get from there, I'm gonna remove the extension pipe attachment flex head here. That's just 2 screws. Yep, and then that lifts out, and there is quite a buildup of crud and stuff in there, so we'll get these parts cleaned up and we'll go from there. Okay. We have gotten so deep into this that there are not very many parts left in this housing, and to give it a really good cleaning like it needs, we're just going to strip this down to bare everything, which will be involved in removing the light bulb socket, the motor assembly, and the circuit breaker. But this is actually looks to be very easy to do. Like I said earlier, this machine was built to be serviced or to have broken parts replaced. It is not a disposable machine. You can get parts for them. So we'll get the motor, the breaker, and the light bulb socket freed. There's a little clip built-in, molded-in clip to capture the wires. Appears that there are 4 screws. Then there's this protective fiberboard piece for the wiring. This motor should be loose and free. It is. Cord should lift out of a slot in the housing. The motor lifts up and free. We just have to remove the circuit breaker, which requires a nut driver. Okay. You could use a pair of pliers to loosen that up. It's not very tight, but we have the nut and washer for the circuit breaker, and all of the electricals will lift right out of the case. Another piece, this has a rubber bumper around it. It is held in to 2 little notches in the case as well. And this will just lift off. Take that in and give it a wash as well. And there we go. Now we have a stripped down case. We can clean this up. Could actually use some soapy water in the sink. There's nothing in here to rust or corrode, so I might just go do that. Give it a good wash. But gave these a bath in the house, scrub brush, some dishwashing soap, and got all the dirt and the crud out of the housings. I mean, again, there's those metal inserts for threads. Things are really built well, and I suppose that's why they're so incredibly expensive. This metal rod is the height adjuster for to set the vacuum height for probably like, you know, smooth floor, carpet, whatever, to raise and lower the front end of it. And these rollers are held on to this rod with these little, I don't even know the proper name, but like a push cap. And they're kind of a one-way deal. You press them on and then they stay, but they won't go backwards under normal use. Now you can sometimes get lucky I've got a flat blade screwdriver. You can just very carefully work your way around and lever these loose, and they will pop off. They're actually made out of a spring type steel, which makes them kind of brittle. But if you're careful, you can probably lever this off like that. It came off. And we can take this roller off, and there's a washer at the back. We'll do it on the other one. And that one just popped off. And there we go. Now, if one of these little things does happen to crack or break, they are available at just about any good hardware store. The hardware stores that have got that one aisle with all of the gazillions of bins of gadgets and doodads, they'll have these in there. So you can get those locally if it happens to break. I'm going to take this rod and clean it up, get rid of this rust and corrosion. You could probably, if you don't have a wire wheel, you could use a Scotch-Brite pad or something. But I'm just going to clean this up, and we will be back. We've got the metal rod cleaned up on the wire wheel, got rid of the rust and the corrosion. So that's ready to go. Now we'll pay a little attention to these roller wheels. There's a lot of gunk and stuff built up in them. So I'm just going to take a small piece of cloth and a small screwdriver. I've got some WD-40 here to use as a solvent, and maybe I'll be able to push this through that hole. Yeah, get that through that hole and work it back and forth. That WD-40 will dissolve some of that gunk and crud in there. You really have to be hesitant about using any kind of oil or lubricant on vacuum cleaner parts, because oil and lubricant or grease, it attracts dirt, and you'll get it, it'll attract the dirt, it'll turn into this gummy abrasive paste that stays in the parts that you don't want to be gummed up or have abrasive in them. So I'm just gonna clean this out, throw that away. I'm gonna take a clean piece of cloth and shove that through. And try and clean out whatever little traces of WD-40 might be in there and dry that out. Okay, we'll reassemble these rollers onto the rod. Just a matter of putting the washer on the roller, taking one of those retainer clips and just gently getting it started all the way around with your finger, and then pressing it into place. You don't want it real tight up against the roller because it'll restrict its movement, but just press it on. And that has been rebuilt. These are the other rollers that are in the base plate. So the shafts are clean, or I should say there's not hardly any corrosion on them at all. So the idea here is just going to be to wipe them down, make sure that there's no debris on there. Again, you really don't want to use any kind of lubricant because you don't want it to attract dirt or drip out onto your carpet and stain it. So basically just making sure they're clean and they spin freely. Those are done. Onto the beater brush itself. As you can see, there's hair and stuff jammed in the, ugh, that's nasty. Hair and things all snarled and tangled up in here. Then I'd like to get these end caps off and see if there is a bearing or a bushing in here that could use some lubrication. So I believe I don't see any screw or fastener holding it on, so we're going to try some gentle pressure. Yep, and it popped off. And you can see there is a roller bearing on the end of the wooden shaft that snaps into this block. And the other one popped off as well. Well, I don't think we're going to try to remove those bearings, but we will get the crud and the tangled hair out of there and then clean up these blocks, and we'll get this thing back to running right. Use a single edge blade to cut up this hair and get it removed. And there we have it. Here's the beater brush. Hair is removed, ungunked. Bearings spin freely. So on to the next piece. We're at where we just need to do a little cleanup on the electricals in this. We're not gonna alter anything or whatever, just clean the accumulated lint. Here was something that just happened. I was just tugging on this wire nut and it came off in my hand. So we need to reinstall that. Make sure that it's secure, and as a precaution, we're just going to torque all of the wire nuts down a little bit more after I don't know how many years and the billions of vibrations that this has gone through. Probably a good idea. I'm assuming a lot of this is rubber dust off of the belt. Oh, the connectors for the circuit breaker just popped off. I'll have to reinstall those. Okay. And give this a little cleanup here. Old toothbrush works great. for scrubbing away dirt and dust like this. So, but just, yeah, check the tightness on the wire nuts, clean the dirt and crud out, and that's about all you need to do with the electrical aspect of it. And I think we are about ready to start reassembling. Okay, time to start reassembly. We're gonna start with the electrical section. The motor drops down into this area. Wiring for the lights. There's a little cable clip here. That goes over this way. Reinstall the wires into that little cable manager clip. Then they wrap around into another one right here. And this circuit breaker. Needs to go through its hole. Washer and retaining nut. And the threads on that circuit breaker are plastic, so you don't want to over tighten it, but just hand tight and snug. The power cable slides into a slot. This wiring kind of gets tucked and packed around. Into the space that's left. Wire nuts get tucked and packed into that little space. And then there are 4 retaining screws. And I just realized I forgot something. Remember that piece of fiberboard? That slides in to this location. It wasn't this way when I took it apart, but I think I'm going to trap it underneath the motor. That is the electrical part of it finished. Now we will flip this over and get to reassembling the height adjuster. That is this apparatus. This goes into this area here. Then the knob is what raises and lowers the little wheel. There's a metal plate that goes in and traps it, holds it into place. Back this way again, we'll have our hose connection parts. Now we have our hose attachment. One thing to pay attention to is this release button needs to face upward. So that sits into the little saddles. And then the cover has a tongue that needs to clip in to the base. Then it flops down over the top. And then you have your retaining screws for that, which hold it into place. And again, none of these screws are super tight, just hand snug. And there we have that. Getting down to the home stretch. Flip it back over. Get our beater brush assembly. The one end here is for the belt to ride on. It has a crown to it. And then on these end blocks, one edge is flat, one edge has a curve. The curved side goes in, drops into those sockets. So you want to put your belt on, shove that through the access hole, drop that down. Then you can turn the machine, stretch the belt over the end of the motor drive, and that will help hold the beater brush in place. Our rubber bump guard. So the longer side of this rubber bumper goes down. So I'm going to start by getting it into the slot and then working it around, getting it into that channel. Probably going to need to stretch it to get it to drop it into the other side. And that is installed. Now we can put the bottom plate on. Flip it over, put our rear rollers in their channels. Make sure that the shafts are down and in, and they will be trapped by this piece, which hooks into the front edge. And then put in our screws that go into the two remove bottom plate holes. Yep. Hand tight, not crazy. One piece that I do not have is a replacement light bulb. I have one on order. I'll have to reinstall the lens for the headlight. And if you notice the edge of this lens, I don't know if you can see that or not, but it is beveled. And so is the socket that it fits into in the housing. So it will only drop in one direction. There's some lugs molded into what would be the top surface, if that is pointed up and the tapered edge is the correct way, that'll slide into its channel. The top fits down over. And then it is re-secured with the long screws into the holes that are labeled to remove top. When my replacement bulb for the headlight comes in, all I'll have to do is take these 4 screws out again, lift the cover, put the bulb in the socket, and we're back in business. I believe that completes our cleaning and reassembly of the Filter Queen Majestic beater brush head. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope it helps you out if you have a problem with one of these machines. And we will see you the next time. Thanks for watching.